ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
So, good evening, Shabbat Shalom. My dog wakes me up a lot in the morning, like 5 o'clock. I don't know, he is insistent that I get up somehow at 5 o'clock in the morning, so I don't really need an alarm, but I wonder what it would be like to be woken up every morning by like a loud blast, like something like a shofar, something without a snooze button, or a way to control the volume, or even a way to turn it off. Welcome to Elul, which I have now named an incessant, impossible to ignore or turn off alarm clock. One of the practices of Elul, which began last night, so today is the beginning of Elul, is to sound the month before Rosh Hashanah. One of the practices of Elul is to sound the shofar every morning, not necessarily as a literal wake-up call, but most definitely as a means by which that we might awaken our spirits and be inspired to begin searching our souls in preparation for the high holy days. So it's not just a 1 or 2 day process. Our tradition gives us lots and lots of time. Maimonides, sometimes called the Rambam, who was one of the most prolific and influential Torah scholars of the Middle Ages, he wrote this about the shofar. He said, "Wake up, you sleepers, from your sleep, and you slumberers from your slumber. Search your deeds and return in penitence and tshuva." So this shofar is meant to wake us up, to start this process of tshuva, to start this process of repentance. So when we pair that insistent, every day for 30 days, no way to wake up message, alarm clock, with an essential teaching from this week's Torah portion, Shoftim, that message being, you must not be indifferent, then we have our assignment for Elul. Wake up and don't be indifferent. Shoftim focuses on the pursuit of justice. Many of you, I think you spoke about this last year, Julie, know the phrase tzedek, tzedek tirdof, justice, justice you will pursue. That's from this week's Torah portion. And the portion talks about a lot of different kinds of justice seeking. And there are lots and lots of ways of understanding all the laws and the teachings. And because there's so many different kinds, there's lots of ways to go into it. But this year, my focus has landed on the degree to which justice relies on our ability to, as individuals or as a collective, to overcome indifference. One of my favorite teachings about indifference is attributed to Desmond Tutu, who was a South African Anglican bishop and theologian. he was known for his work as an anti-apartheid and human rights activist. And I remember this teaching from years ago in a Haggadah that I must have had. And this is the teaching. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse, and you say that you are neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality. Closer to home, Elie Wiesel said that indifference has the power to make entire populations less than, which is what happened to him and millions of others during the Holocaust. He reminds us that we must take an interest in the anguish of others or the humanity of others, even when it is tempting to look the other way. So I'm going to share this kind of strange two-verse teaching that appears in Shoftim as a way to talk about indifference from a different perspective. So here's the teaching from our portion. If a dead body is found, fallen in the field, it is not known who killed that person, but it's clear that it's a murder. The elders of the town nearest to the body shall, and here's where it gets really weird, take a heifer, and in the wadi they shall break the heifer's neck. Then they shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the wadi, and they should make this declaration. It's kind of like washing their hands of the situation. Our hands did not shed this blood, nor did the eyes see it done, and they will be absolved of blood guilt. So everyone understands? So they actually, it goes into like a whole detail about how they figure out who should be doing this. What? It's yucky? Yeah, it is. But it's yucky. So let's talk about it. So there's a common reading of this ritual, which is called, and you know how much I love animals, so this is hard, the broken-necked heifer, that applauds us for holding, because it holds us as a community responsible for addressing a tragedy, even when we are not directly guilty. So what it says is there's someone who needs to take responsibility for this thing that happened, even if they're not responsible. Blood is, I don't know about the heifer, but just that they're taking this responsibility. This reading teaches us that even when we are not directly responsible for a particular wrongdoing, we or someone is responsible for addressing it, right? So it may not be that we who did it, but someone is responsible for addressing it. And I think the Torah is telling us that we're responsible for it. But there's a rabbi named Guy Austrian who pushes the issue. He says, can we really just wash our hands, mumble a few lines of prescribed liturgy, and be done with it? Like someone was murdered. So as it turns out, the early rabbis didn't think that was the case. The Mishnah asserts that the practice was actually discontinued from when the murders increased. So this rabbi points out that on the surface, the Mishnah is merely reporting the change, suggesting that the ritual became impractical once murder became commonplace, as though there weren't enough heifers and wadis, which is unbelievable, right? Like there's so many murders that you couldn't keep doing this practice. Pretty unbelievable. And then he goes on to say, I believe that the rabbis, dissatisfied with the ritual's theology of justice, actually wanted to undermine it and prevent its return. So they didn't like it. And I don't like it either, and I don't think any of you like it either. Because we appreciate that when something bad or tragic or dangerous keeps happening, it's not okay to stop addressing it, right? It's like murder got to be too much, so they stopped doing this ritual. That's not okay. It's not okay. When something becomes so bad or dangerous or tragic and it keeps happening, it's absolutely not the time to stop addressing it. When something bad or dangerous or tragic keeps happening, it's time to figure out a way to end it. And the shofar of Elul agrees. I found a very old sermon from 1951. It was typewritten on a typewriter with handwritten edits. You know, like arrows and lines crossed out. I used to do that too. And the sermon was written by Rabbi Norman Lamb. And he talked about this teaching, or this Torah episode. And he said that in the case of the person found murdered, now this is so interesting, his perspective. He says, the community that allowed a person to wander alone and forsaken outside of the safety of the community should be held accountable for the tragedy. It's totally changing the whole notion of it. He takes the formula the townspeople are supposed to say when they say, our hands did not spill this blood, nor did our eyes see it done. And he turns it around and he says, the part that says that our eyes did not see means that we accept moral responsibility because we failed to see a person who was in need. We failed to see a person who was left alone from a community of safety. Now, it's not like today when we might drive to Philadelphia, right? We get in our car and we go. When you left your community, you were in danger, you were in peril. And yet he's holding the community accountable and saying that person left and put himself at risk and nobody noticed. Nobody walked with him, nobody accompanied him, nobody said, "Are you okay?" He said the elders of the town failed to notice him, what he might have needed, whether it be companionship or encouragement or an act of kindness. This not noticing of a person's pain or humanity is a terrible, sometimes dangerous practice. And it's teaching us that we must not remain indifferent to the pain or to the plight or to the vulnerability of another person. So I think that's pretty clear. I'm going to give another example and then try to bring it together. So I think it's pretty obvious from this summer that our being indifferent to the threats of our earth are getting us in trouble. I don't know how it's possible that the events of the last decade have not prodded us, moved us, or yanked us out of our indifference to what's going on in the climate, the sources of so many tragedies around this world. At this moment, unprecedented wildfires continue to rage in Canada, and Maui sits in ashes while the death toll climbs there every day. The planet is hotter than it's been in thousands of years, and this summer alone, Vermont saw 2 months worth of rain, 2 months worth of rain in 2 days. India and Japan experienced extreme flooding. There were scorching hot streets in Texas, Florida, Arizona, Spain, and China. And ocean temperatures have been deemed beyond extreme. And of course, the most vulnerable human victims of all these tragedies continue to be the most marginalized. It's embarrassing and it's dangerous to be indifferent now, in Elul or ever. Elul and the shofar and this Torah portion all say, stop that. Stop that indifference right now. So 2 things. One is that I came across an article on a URJ blog in which a congregant wrote about hearing a sermon on indifference. It wasn't me. He wrote that he was listening to a sermon on a Friday night, and the rabbi spoke about a social ill, a controversial and divisive one. And this person wrote that he said that he was singled out. He said, I'm sorry, my rabbi spoke to the congregation and without singling me out, told me I was indifferent. He said, I wasn't angry at him for saying so. I was angry at myself because he was correct. This rabbi had addressed this controversial issue, and this man actually cared a lot about the issue. And so but he had done nothing about it. He cared about it, but he had done nothing about it. And so he felt that the rabbi was speaking directly to him. And then he left that place and he said that his silence is what made him indifferent, and that he pledged that when he left the room that he would no longer be indifferent. I don't want anyone to feel that this rabbi is telling any one of you that you're indifferent, but I do want to suggest that our inability to actually address in a helpful way so many of the things that are going on feels a little bit like indifference. It feels a little bit like we just say, all of us, like that's a terrible thing that's happening, or it's very hot outside, or I'm so glad I don't live there, or whatever it is that we say. It's time for us to stop being so indifferent. So it's time for us to listen to that incessant blast of the shofar that's going to be blasting us every morning of this month. And so just a few minutes ago, I just want to close with this. When we were reading this prayer on page 55, like every time we turn this page, I have a decision to make. on page 55. Am I going to read the top of the page, which is like really sweet and nice? May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth, right? This is a beautiful, sweet reading. Or disturb us, Adonai, ruffle us from complacency, make us dissatisfied. And that's the one that I picked. So just to review that a little bit. Make us dissatisfied with the peace of ignorance, the quietude which arises from a shunning of the horror, the defeat, the bitterness, and the poverty, physical and spiritual, of humans. Disturb us, O God, and vex us. Let not your Shabbat, let not this Elul, let not this upcoming high holiday season be a time that we sleep. Let it be a time to be stirred and spurred to action. Shabbat Shalom. We continue now with Aleinu on page 282. If you are able, please rise.
לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please remain standing. Kaddish is on page 294. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us. Within the last week, Richard Rubinoff, the father of our congregant Karen and Amy Rubinoff, and the grandfather of Roy, were here. Within the last 30 days, my friend Ann Fay, Mia Forscher, the mother of Joan Forscher, Mark Greenberg, Isabel Leindecker, Jay Loy, the husband of Carol Rosenson, Bernard Pepper Mallinger, Fred Marks, Maxine Shepman, the sister of Eileen Levy. We also remember those who died at this season in years past, whose yahrzeit we observe on this Shabbat. If I don't know a relation and you're here, please let me know. Maurice W. Baruth, Ann Berman, Stuart Cabin, Eugene Crawford, Selma Davis, Fran Gold, Andrew Kaufman, Daryl Lazarus, Dr. Bernard Levin, Mayor Sophie Masloff, Barbara Rakoff, Goldie Recht, Marcia Robbins-Danovitz, Ann Rosenthal, Theodore M. Tabachnik, Cy Unel, and Josh Wolf. Are there any other names for Kaddish tonight?
Ken Warsakoff.
Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for blessing. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrach rutei, v'yamlich machutei, b'chayechon uvyamechon, uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'agalau v'yizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mavarach le'olam olmei almaya, yitzbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei d'kudesha b'irchu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, huyaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. You may be seated.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום. ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
So, a couple of announcements. Tomorrow morning, Rabbi Bert Schumann and Gary Sorok will be chanting Torah and teaching Torah and then treating everybody to lunch. It's immediately following services tomorrow morning, so if you'd like to join them, they're very excited and we're happy we're very lucky to be able to have people that care so much, who want to dedicate so much time and effort to teach us and to connect with us and to prepare a gathering for us. If you should be getting your High Holy Day magazine. If you haven't already got it, it should come in your mail this week. It has all the information you'll need to come be part of the High Holy Days. Every member household in good standing will receive a pass to attend holiday services. That'll come in the mail prior to the High Holy Days, and that estimated delivery time is September 1st. You can use our High Holiday portal on the website to make all your dinner reservations, register for childcare, do all the things that you need to do, and probably find all the answers to your questions. But if you don't, then give us a call, and we'll be happy to tell you. I'd like to thank Luke for his expertise making us seen and heard, and it is always my pleasure to lead this service with my colleagues, Don and Cantor Glaser, and all of you. So we will be concluding our service with Kiddush and Motzi, and then Oseh Shalom. If you'd like to follow along on Kiddush, it's on page 5.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו ושבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה וראשית כי הוא יום תחילה למקרא קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת אמן.
Chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom, Oseh Shalom. All the shaloms.
Oh yeah, let's do Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru Oseh Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru Oseh Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Boom.